All right, I'm going to call this meeting to order at 7:03. The Finance Committee, October 17th. First, before we get going, I will make sure that everyone is present and can hear me and can participate remotely. So Ken,
Yes.
Danielle,
Yes.
Peter,
Yes.
Kevin,
Yes.
Jillian,
Yes.
all right, and Greg and Lori, you're here for potential questions. Thank you for being here. Also need to remind everybody that this meeting is being recorded, so please take care not to put anything up on your screen that you would not like captured in the recording, and that all votes needed this evening will be done by a roll call vote. So as I said before, the public hearing is scheduled to start at 7:15. So before then, we have our routine agenda, which should involve approving the minutes. And I believe I put the wrong date on the agenda. I said September 12th. It should be September 27th, but I do not believe our secretary has provided those yet. So we may have to go ahead and just put those on our next agenda. So we'll just move into updates from chair and members. I will go first. The biggest items lately have been certainly the bleachers with regards to things discussed at certainly at select board meetings. And the which we can talk about more a little later in the public hearing if anyone has any questions with regards to the article about that. And also something of interest for pretty much everyone in town, I think, is that the select board's been talking about potentially doing a energy partnership, I guess. Is that what you call it, Greg? Or what is an official name?
Well,
I don't want to misspeak.
Yep. So our program recommended by the Sustainability Committee is the Community Choice Aggregation Program. Sometimes it's called the Community Electricity Aggregation Program. So CCA or CEA, but it's the same thing.
Okay. And so if we decide to be a part of this program, then everyone's electricity will potentially, it's a way to.
I can explain if.
Okay, sure.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay.
You probably have a more succinct way of saying it.
Well, that's okay. I mean, anyone can Google it, CCA or CEA, Community Electricity Aggregation. So it's an aggregate, right? So it's the purchasing power of a lot of customers. So it's an opt-out program, meaning that all households will get a notification in the mail if we go this far, but it's going to take like a year to get to this far in the process. But eventually, if this all came to pass, everyone would get notification that you're already being automatically enrolled into this program. But households don't have to do anything. It just would be reflected on the back of your Eversource bill, and it would just have probably, I don't know, whatever acronym for the name of the program it might be, and then it would show the supplier where you're getting your So we would go out to bid through this consultant, which the Sustainability Committee recommended, Peregrine Energy Group. That doesn't really matter, but they recommended this particular firm, and procurement law doesn't apply to energy consultants. I don't know why, but then so we could go with this particular firm. They're very similar. There's a handful of firms that do this, and they would probably do the bidding process to get our supplier. So you don't have to use Eversource to both supply and deliver electricity. You can get two different entities to do that. So one being Eversource, because they own all the infrastructure, they're going to be the ones actually bringing the electricity to your house. But you don't have to have them. You don't have to buy the electricity from Eversource. So you can buy electricity from somebody else. So if the great majority of about just short of 5,000 households all put in their same purchasing power, that can be used to our advantage. And that's what this Peregrine group would try to do for us. And then they would sort of manage the notifications of this program. And then there's a couple of different advantages. One advantage is that you get the same rate for a number of years. So let's say it's a 2-year contract you have with whatever that electricity supplier is, then you have the same rate for 2 years, as opposed to most, including Eversource utilities, where it fluctuates seasonally. So the idea is that you get a savings because you have a competitive process to get your supply, as opposed to just going with whatever Eversource tells you have to pay. And then separately, you have consistent rate pay. So there might be times when Eversource might be lower, but other times when they're higher. But cumulatively, it's expected that you'll have not like a huge amount of substantial savings, but like you'll be cheaper overall over the course of that length of that supply contract than if we were all using Eversource. So like the Peregrine, who came to the select board, had quoted like 150 different communities have already done this, or a variation of this program. That's probably true. It seems like it's very popular in the Commonwealth, because there's not a lot of downsides to individual households. So it's just taking advantage of the fair market of energy supply. That wasn't very succinct, but that was my
No, but thank
presentation.
you. No, I appreciate it.
Yeah.
I think it's a good thing for us to know might be coming. And
Yeah.
while it doesn't really affect the town's budget,
No.
whatnot, it's more about the individual.
Right.
However, it could a little bit if we do see some save. I mean, the town has to pay for electricity too, just like
Well,
a household.
I do that separately. So okay. I already do that. So that we use a different consultant. Like, the town has a lot of consultants, right? So we use a different consultant called Tradition Energy, and we use them for our energy supply, which was several weeks ago. I presented that to the select board to do a similar sort of like energy supply contract. Yeah, it's just right. So to your point, it doesn't. This CCA, Community Choice Aggregation Program, does not affect the general fund.
Right. Okay. So if you're interested in, this, I recommend watching the last select board meeting, or the
No, I
one
think it was
two ago. I think it was 2 ago.
Yeah.
And the end of September, I want to say.
Yeah, I think it was September.
You can watch the video on that, and they're probably going to they're going to come back, right? Because that was just their first presentation about it. So Peregrine's going to come back on a later agenda.
Well, I would negotiate a contract with Peregrine, and then I'll bring that to the select board. The select board has not made any commitments. All they did is they told me, go get a contract.
Okay. So it'll be discussed later on if you're interested, as it pertains to your personal household. But like you said, it's an opt-out. So if you don't like this at all, then you don't have to be a part of it.
That's right.
I don't think other than, so, as I said earlier, but we do not need to discuss Article, is it 8? Now I've lost track. Having to do with the additional ask for the CPC. Yes, Article 8 for Marble Farm project. They are withdrawing that article, which has to be done on town meeting floor at this point because it's in the warrant. But so we don't need to deliberate and write our comments on that.
So
yep.
So yeah, so that's what I discussed at length during the past 2 weeks.
At their meetings and
at their meetings.
Yeah.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Is there anything particularly you want to highlight or
talk about with it, or? I mean, not this time. I do have a little bit concerns about kind of the confusion that went on between DPW and the CPC. It seems like there was, I think, DPW, I think DPW and the CPC were all overwhelmed in the churn, and there was some miscommunication that happened. So I'd like to, at a later date, it's not relevant to special town meeting, but I would like to look into a little bit more as to why that miscommunication happened, and be able to give people an explanation for why this article is being withdrawn at a later time.
Okay.
But should I just give my update, Madam Chair?
Yeah, why don't you go ahead, because I'm all set. So
Yeah.
we'll start with you. Go for it, Kevin.
So yeah, I've been meeting with the CPC. I also met with Megan Zamudu. I'm sorry, is it Zamudu? Did I pronounce it? Correct me if.
No, it's okay. She might be on.
No, I'm here.
She's on. I see her on. Yeah.
Zamudo.
Zamudo.
Yeah, Zamudo. Thank you.
So I did get some perspective from the executive branch regarding the marijuana impacts payments article. That'll be included in my comments tonight. So I did get provided some articles of a similar nature, of similar generality. I will definitely be bringing those up, Megan, if I get asked. And yeah, and I think I could provide some pros and cons to the article and provide a balanced perspective of what's going on with it and what I think we would be getting if we approved it and what we'd be getting if we didn't approve it.
Okay. Great. Any other members with some updates tonight? Nope.
The next budget subcommittee meeting is November 2nd. So.
Okay. Great. It's starting to be that time. Once special town meetings behind us, it'll be budget time. So.
Yeah, and just a reminder, Alana, I won't be at town meeting next week. I'm going to be out on travel. Okay.
Yes, thank you. And if anyone else knows that they're not going to be able to make it, would be good to know ahead of time just in case. We should have quorum there, but we want to make sure we do. Just occasionally certain things come up on the floor and they need a vote, so we do try to have a quorum at all town meetings.
I will also not be able to make it.
Okay.
And I have a pending.
Go ahead, Kevin.
I have a pending business trip. Dates are still TBD. But we're getting dangerously close to losing a quorum, so I might have to work something out, but I'd probably be the last one, so I'd probably be on the hook to make sure we have a quorum. But just a heads up in case we still have a quorum, that I may have an interfering business trip.
Okay. Peter, go ahead.
Yeah, I plan to be there. So.
Okay. Danielle, do you know if you're going to be able to attend? Yeah.
Yep, I'm planning on being there.
All right. So that's 3. I will check in with Katie, which would be 4, which is our quorum. And if there's a problem with Katie, I'll let you know for sure, Kevin.
All right.
All right. So we have gotten to 7:16 on my clock. So I think I will go ahead and open up our special town meeting public hearing concerning the articles on the town meeting warrant. And I will go ahead and share my screen. We'll pull up the warrant. And we will go through the articles one by one. And the time to open the meeting was 7:16, Danielle.
Do we have to have a public hearing if there's no public here? I don't know that we've ever had absolutely no public.
Well, maybe there will be some more to join, and I think it would be a good idea to just go through the articles. And because this is being recorded, I will try to get it up as quickly as possible. And then if anyone prior to the meeting would like to watch it, they can do that. So I think there's still some value to it.
Yeah, I would tend to agree, since we've had them recorded. There may be some people relying on that.
Yeah. So I will start with Article 1, borrowing authorization for well 4A treatment plant. This article is appropriating $5 million for our water sewer updates to well 4A. This is a 2-phase project. Phase 1 has already been funded. This is phase 2, and it will be the completion of this project. This will bring well 4A online with water, and also to be treated, to be able to actually get the water out to us. It's one thing to drill and to have the well, it's another thing to treat it and make it publicly available. The price tag on this did go up since it was first, started. As we all know, there's been a lot of increase in production and costs associated with construction, et cetera. But this will hopefully bring us to where we need to be for well 4A. I know we're all, it's been a long time coming, and looking forward to having this project done. So you can see the sponsor comments and then the FinCom comments. FinCom recommended passage of this article. Does anyone on the committee have anything they want to add to this article? Okay. Article 2, free cash certification.
Sorry.
Yep.
I didn't know.
Sorry.
Sorry, I can't.
I just had a quick question. Can you still
Sure.
hear me?
Yeah, go ahead, Jill.
Are we still down one water well right now? Like, is that reflected in any of the text, or is that back online?
No, that has been brought back online, I believe. Greg, correct me if I'm wrong.
You know what?
But
I don't want to, I think it has. But
they
I'm not
did further, I know they did further testing. Nothing else came back positive for the E. coli. So I'm pretty sure that is
Yeah.
in the clear now.
That one's
Meg-
back.
Okay.
Thanks, Megan.
Thanks, Megan.
Okay, thank you very much.
No, I
then
definitely thought of this when that happened. Go ahead, Peter.
And then does this, and it's never fully resolved, but does this significantly ease our water supply pressure kind of town-wide? That we were concerned we might have to, not allow a development because of water supply. Does this solve that issue?
Yes and no. So it does provide, we are at I would say, to your point, Peter, we're kind of at our limits when it comes to major developments. Like, there can be infill, meaning like if there was already existing residence or commercial, then that's a 1-for-1, if you will. And then there can be some new houses, like down on Percival Street, you saw the new houses or whatever. Like that's not going to break us, but this will make us more comfortable. But it's not going to really set us up for like hundreds of units if that was ever to come, and I don't know where that might go. But really, this is just going to make us more comfortable where we are. There's what our true, like, on the horizon sites are set is to expand Old Marlborough Road. So it's basically that property road that there's like a lot of wetland, and there was some exploratory drilling already done that found that there's the potential for substantially more water source behind the Old Marlborough plant or on the border with Sudbury. But so yes and no, like we need this done so that we feel better about where we were, so that we don't, because if we were to lose another water well, then that would be bad, right? Or multiple wells, that'd be bad. But this gets us pretty comfortable, but it doesn't really get us towards like major developments. And long term, like, we don't want to have to worry about water ever. This won't get us quite there, but it's like the phase we have to do.
So just by way of example, if we had another project similar to 129 Parker,
yeah, we couldn't do that.
At this point, we couldn't do that.
No, and in fact, like, so the mill is even the mill, right? So the mill is only, don't quote me on what percentage occupancy it is, but it's not 100% occupied. Not that it ever would be, but like, it's not even 75% occupied. And if one day they decide to, like, fill up the occupation of the mill, I don't know if we'd be able to provide water. That's too many toilets and too many faucets running. So, or other developments. You might recall that the Chinese company wanted to come down and do dorms potentially around a powder mill. I don't think we can handle that right now. But this could get us more comfortable with some of those medium-sized projects. But a major project, we're going to need that bigger well source, or potentially bigger well source down Old Marlborough.
So that was the
Thanks.
Beijing Royal School that
Yeah.
would have gone up behind
Yeah.
Wendy's there.
But and they're still around, by the way.
Yeah.
They've been hitting up Megan recently, but no, we don't know when they're actually gonna come around.
So Greg, I recall when Justin was talking about this, he painted a little bit, I wouldn't say dire, but a little bit more severe picture that really this well is really part of Maynard Crossing, that this well was to get us to a level of capacity just to support Maynard Crossing
Sure.
and that expansion. And I believe, or maybe it was me, but I believe Justin also said that there was a risk of if we didn't do this well, there would be a risk that there would be interruption in the water going to people's faucets, i.e. faucets would be running dry. Is what I just said any different than what you recall?
I think it's a combination of if all the faucets were turned on at the same time, then sure, we would probably have a water supply issue. But during a drought and other, if there's wet conditions, meaning like the rest of our wells are at full capacity and our water tanks are we have the reserves up on the top of the hill. So like there's if everything went wrong, sure, I'm sure we would get nervous about water faucets. But this, to the point I think I said earlier, if we don't do this, then yeah, we're setting ourselves. This is a vulnerability that the town has that we need to address.
Yeah, I think Justin was remarking more about during the drought, the bad drought we had this summer, our pumps were working 24/7, and that's not ideal. It's not good for the equipment. It's not there's nothing sitting in the it made him nervous, I would say.
Yeah.
Nobody likes that situation. So, and we don't know if that's going to be more happening more in the summers or not, maybe, and so I think that was sort of where where what you're speaking to, Kevin, came from, for sure.
Yeah.
And so I seem to recall like our river, the Assabet was running pretty low when I was walking downtown. So hopefully the situation has improved and we're in a better position than we were in the summer. But I think you're right. Like if we get another drought like that, we're back to 100% pumps pumping all the time, which is, as you said, not good for the equipment, not good for the equipment lifetime. And also a risky situation because when pump goes down, suddenly you have you need that 100% supply. So this is to address not necessarily our average load, but our peak load that happens during the summertime.
That's a good way of putting it.
Mm-hmm. All right. Any other questions or comments? Okay. Moving on to the free cash certification reporting. So this is just a change to the bylaw, chapter 38, periodic financial reports, which we actually just put in place at our last annual town meeting. And this is to address the fact that we don't always know exactly when the Department of Revenue is going to certify our free cash. So what this says is once we get that, within 3 weeks, we'll give the report for that. Because we can't really hardline say we'll have a report done by this date because it's not up to us. Sometimes we're at the mercy of the higher ups. So that's all this was put in there to say, that to give us 3 weeks after we get that. So it's not a set date. It's whenever we get that report, then 3 weeks later, the town will get the public report. Is that anything else to add? Maybe Lori, or is that about it?
Nope, that's about it. That's the way it was explained to me, and we should definitely be able to meet that deadline.
Okay. Any other questions or comments on Article 2? Okay. Moving on to Article 3, amend the general town fund budget for fiscal year 2023. So this article, we are increasing the town budget by $331,745. And the way that we are increasing this is described both for those looking at the warrant. There's some description in the sponsor comments, but also, forgive my scroll, I know that's kind of weird to watch. If you go down to Appendix A, you can see the additions and then the subtractions, and it's works out to the amount. So we're still have a balanced budget. Here it is right here. That's the addition right there. And this appendix lets you know where revenue we added, which is this first section here. I'm pointing at my screen like you can see my finger. Use the cursor. These additions here, 331,745. So that's additional revenue that we have received. And then this is how we are going to spend it in these categories. Again, equals the same amount. And then if you want more detail, continuing in the appendix, you can see where exactly those additions are. So let me scroll back up. Forgive the scroll here. Okay. So, Greg, is there anything you want to highlight specifically on this one? I think you did a pretty good job with the sponsor comments. Thank you for those.
I don't think so. Not that I haven't said anything before. I don't think
Right.
so.
Okay. So again, this happens, pretty much every year. By the time, we have to get our budget done for annual town meeting. That's in May, but we often don't have all of the numbers and all of the information till the summer. And then that's usually why we have a special town meeting, is specifically to make sure we bring our budget back into balance. So any comments from other members of the Finance Committee? Okay, I'll just do one quick highlight, which is the 150 to Public Works for the EL Harvey contract change, and just let everyone know and just draw attention to the last sentence there in the sponsor comments about Greg forming an advisory group, and that we're gonna do some research and things moving forward for our next contract. This is an extension, and there may be some changes coming. So everyone keep listening in to the meetings, because I'm sure there'll be lots to talk about with that. All right, if no one has anything else on this one, I will move on to Article 4. Amend the Water Enterprise Fund budget for fiscal year 2023. So this article says appropriation of 14,477. It's not actually adding that amount, as you can see in the budget. It's just moving it, and so we have to approve this. I believe do we have to approve it specifically because it's salaries? I feel like there was a reason, or am I wrong about that?
Lori, what do you think?
It's because of the indirect costs, because we were
Okay.
Changing the indirect cost amount, and the law only allows me, the town, I should say, to charge the enterprise funds the exact amount voted at town meeting. So
Okay.
since we're making a change to the indirect costs due to union contract negotiations, the increase of salaries, we needed to come back to town meetings to adjust the enterprise fund budgets.
Okay, thank you, Lori.
You're welcome.
So it is much like our budget, we're balancing the budget. We are adding to salaries and shared employing costs, and we are taking away this same amount from the capital line. And Justin felt that this amount taken out of the capital line was not going to seriously impact operations. And there are the comments on it. Are there any questions or comments on this article? Okay. Moving on to Article 5, transfer marijuana community impact payments. So this article is concerning the special monies that have come to the town through the host community agreements with our marijuana retailers. This is a very specific type of money. It can only be used in very certain ways that have to do with the impact to the town from those retailers. And this article is allowing the money that we have since collected to be put into a fund that can actually be spent from with the projects that the town has, the town believes fits the specifics of what we are allowed to spend this on. So just as an example, we can't spend this money on new bleachers. Like that's just not really within the realm of, I would think, an impact from marijuana, just to give you like an idea. Megan, did you want to speak to this article specifically?
Sure. So I think the argument that I mentioned here a couple of meetings ago with the finance committee was that both of these marijuana retailers are in our cultural district, and some of the communities all around us don't have recreational marijuana. So one of the impacts that we're concerned about is that we're going to be known for kind of a marijuana centric focus in our downtown. And although I don't think that the cultural district that we've been working so hard towards and marijuana are incompatible, but we do want to focus on mitigating, any perception of a conflict there by working to improve our public realm and focus on building up our downtown. So when we're thinking about, impacts from these two businesses, the plan here is to spend it on three kind of main areas, which is beautification efforts, infrastructure improvements, and cultural district programming. So, although this is, it was supposed to be ongoing funds for the contract term, which is 5 years. New legislation has significantly changed that. So, I'm kind of looking at this as one-time funds, but what I'm also doing is meeting with our two retailers, which I did this month, discussing how we plan to spend these funds, and in a way, kind of emphasizing and explaining that there is an impact, and we will potentially, need additional funds past this year, because, and I don't know if I explained this before, but the way our contract is written that we negotiated with these retailers is that communities, like our community, can get 3% of gross sales, which is separate from the sales tax. But new legislation that passed this summer changed it so that you don't get a flat fee for impacts. You have to go work with a marijuana company, basically hand them your receipts and say, these are the impacts, will you cover these? So that's what I'm trying to do. What I'm proposing we do here is, use these funds to invest in our public realm, which will increase vitality, increase property value, make our downtown even a more attractive place to be, so that in the future, when we're negotiating with these companies, there's a precedent set and real buy-in for this concept of mitigation. But I'm happy to answer any questions. This legislation is fairly new. It's really changed the game. It's taken a while to wrap our heads around here. But we're talking about funds that were collected last year that are in this stabilization fund. And like I said, I did speak with both marijuana companies about the plan to use the funds, and they were both comfortable with it, which is, we have a very good relationship with them at this point. So nothing but good things to say. And there's a lot of exciting projects that I think our community could really benefit from the appropriation of these funds. Happy to answer any questions.
So Alana, I do have a comment to make.
Sorry. Go ahead.
In regards to legislation, let me just recognize the hard work of our town staff. This legislation that passed really upended every town's plan for these marijuana impact payments. We had contracts in place with host community agreements, and this legislation is completely upturning the table. And this legislation went against the recommendations of the Massachusetts Municipal Association. So I just want to recognize that this is a difficult situation that our town staff are in, and they're doing the best they can to adapt. But the state legislature really upturned the table on us as far as the impact payments go, and really upturned all our plans that we had for those impact payments.
That's a good. Yep. It's a good point.
Now, that being said, I was the one who voted against recommending this article. Really, my reasons for doing so was the lack of specificity, and I think there's probably a trade-off to be made. I recognize there's arguments both ways. There have been similar legislature in the past. Ideally, I would have rather the executive branch town staff had come to us with a specific proposal for the beautification or the infrastructure projects, as opposed to an open-ended thing. My small sample of people, of residents that I've talked to, have had concerns about prior infrastructure projects where they were fairly open-ended, and those projects resulted in an outcome that they were not happy with. So my read, again, it's on a small sample of some individuals, that they would rather have more say in how our town is going to look, and what infrastructure we're going to build in town. And that's really my basis for recommending against. The kind of the metric I thought of when I was thinking of this and we were debating it was, if this was a purchase made by a loved one or a trusted friend, would I recommend that purchase? And I really wouldn't recommend kind of a mystery box style purchase where you don't know really what you're getting. But here are the mitigating factors. Here's kind of the other side. So this is kind of the trade-off town meeting voters need to make. It's, do they want to have more say in how the town builds its infrastructure and what beautification projects it pursues? Or does it want to give the executive branch more flexibility? On one hand, if we vote down this article, we are probably going to miss out on some matching fund opportunities because those come and go very quickly, as I talked to Megan about. And we are going to put additional workload on our town staff to really come back, with an article, maybe possibly having to call another special town meeting to vote on something specific if we vote it down. So this is really the trade-off we have to make. So voting down this article, you'll have more say in town, but we may miss out on matching funds. We'll put additional load on staff. Approving this article, you may not get exactly what your heart's desire, but our town staff will have a little bit more flexibility. They'll have an easier workload, and there may be some matching fund opportunities that we'd be able to acquire that we would not otherwise be able to pursue.
Okay. I just want to add that, this, again, that this is not all encompassing of towns infrastructure changes, and plenty of things do certainly come to town meeting for specifics. However, this is a very specific pot, only to be used for certain things. And as much as, there may be some great ideas on how to use it, it may not fit the bill on legally how we can use it. And that is something that, Megan has done a lot of research on, and I trust her judgment and the select board to vet those projects and make sure that we are all above board and, not going to get sued and all of those things about this money. And that, right, calling a special town meeting for something of this magnitude. I mean, I don't want to downplay. I mean, $137-ish thousand is a wonderful addition to our town for sure. And it can do some really, I'm sure it can do some really good things. But in the grand scheme of our, $42+ million budget, and the fact that special town meetings cost a lot of money, a lot of time, which is money because we pay our staff, and paper and everything else. And I just don't even, and as we've seen before, especially in this market, things change quickly. I know I just got a one estimate that was good for 10 days because if I didn't approve it then they were not going to stand by that price. So it's very hard to, break up this money into such things and then have to go through a special town. It's a 30-day process at least, and then, say yes or no to all of them. So to me, that is quite cumbersome. I do understand the idea of, wanting to say to everybody, here's the money, here's exactly what we're doing with it, please approve it. But I hope that anyone that is, interested can certainly reach out to Megan, can go to select board meetings, can write to our select board, and keep on top of what the plans are.
I guess that's the thing I would say here is that, it's not as though town meeting is the only time that you have provided for input. Okay, this is being done for a specific reason so that we can segregate these monies and be able to demonstrate that they're being used appropriately. I think that's a very important thing, and that on its face ought to be, ought to be reason enough to move forward with this. The fact is that this is not, this money isn't being spent. It's money that is going into a fund that can be spent. And obviously that would be being done by vote of the select board at meetings and so forth. So, I think it's a little bit strange to sit here and treat this as if, the only time that we town meeting voters have input on decisions is at town meeting. We also have that opportunity at select board meetings. And so it's not as though, the select board is being given carte blanche on this.
All right, any other comments from other committee members? All right, then I will move on to Article 6. Amend Sewer Enterprise Fund budget for fiscal year 2023. So this one is very similar to Article 4. The reason they're not just stacked together has to do mostly with the way that we go about in our voting, and the fact that we would have to hold off, when you do ballot counts and things. This was separated by the town moderator in the hopes of having town meeting run more smoothly. If anyone's wondering why, there's an article in between that doesn't seem related. So this is very similar to Article 4 that we've already discussed. We needed to increase salaries and shared employee costs after contracts were negotiated. And in order to balance that increase, we have taken the same amount, which is $13,867 out of the sewer capital line. Once again, Justin felt that this was a doable trade-off, that amount would not significantly impact the sewer operations for the year. Are there any questions or comments on this article? Okay. Moving on to Article 7, transfer free cash appropriation for bleachers repairs. So this article is not a change of monetary amount. It is only a change of proposed use of that. The original free cash appropriation at annual town meeting said alumni field bleachers design / engineering. And since then, we have had a lot of changes in our bleacher situation. And so Greg wanted to change this to alumni field bleachers, improvements, rentals, repairs, replacement, design, engineering. Basically so that we would have this money to do with whatever we needed at that time once this is approved for the bleachers. So however we wanted to put this toward bleachers, we could. It didn't just have to be the design and engineering of new bleachers. I think that's about it. Greg, did I cover that all right?
No, that's it. Yeah.
Okay.
You're fine.
So I guess the one thing I would add on here is, there is likely to be some discussion at town meeting about the larger picture, and there is a larger solution that this is only one part of. And the matter before town meeting voters is fairly limited in scope. So the moderator may choose to say, look, that, the issue of the larger solution, the question about what is the longer term solution is not really germane to this particular vote. I'm not suggesting that's what he will do. I'm saying there's going to be a lot of questions that are outside of the scope of this particular vote. This particular vote isn't appropriating any additional money. It's simply taking that and allowing us to spend it on more things. And so I don't know if you've had discussions, but I could see this becoming a very large discussion that would be a big distraction from the issue at hand.
Yeah, I think that is a valid point, Ken. I think this is a very hot topic right now. And so there may be, a lot of questions and wanting to speak on it in ways that really don't affect this particular vote, though that is important discussion and, absolutely. But
so I don't know who is going to speak to that, whether that would be the select board who is sponsoring this or the moderator who is moderating the meeting. But somebody at some, I'm not saying there should be zero discussion outside of the parameters, but you could imagine, that we could spend an inordinate amount of time at town meeting talking about issues that have nothing to do with this particular matter and just serve to cloud the picture. And somebody's going to have to step up at some point and sort of say, this is a very, circumscribed issue.
Yep.
Isn't that the job of the moderator to determine what's in order and what's out of order? So that person to step up would actually be our town moderator.
Well, so it would be, but it also could be the select board, whichever member the select board, which is introducing this, could also in his or her comments do much to focus this. I mean, you know, if I were doing it, I would probably say this is a very limited vote on this particular pot of money. We realize that there is a larger issue and we will be discussing that in other places. There's lots of things that the person who's introducing this could do to either, you know, focus those discussions, those concerns, you know, in the more proper venue, or by neglecting to do so, invites that larger conversation.
Would that would the select board be the most appropriate, the sponsor to be the most appropriate one to make that comment, or would this body, FinCom, be the most appropriate one to make that comment?
No, I think it would be the sponsor or the moderator.
Yeah.
You know, they're going to stand up and introduce. We've been doing things very differently. If you've only joined us since COVID, we've been doing town meeting quite differently than our usual gathering. We've been trying to be basically as speedy as possible, and we've been cutting down. We haven't had different people come up and speak to each article, and you know, there's usually a lot more actually that goes into it, especially annual town meeting. There's usually presentations and, you know, things. So we are getting back to that.
We have no part to play in that. We make a recommendation to town meeting voters on the specific matter before town meeting. Getting into a discussion of a larger solution set would be outside of the scope of our responsibilities to make those recommendations.
Yeah, I mean, I
Correct.
fully agree with all of that.
Yeah. So it would likely be the person, the select board is the sponsor for this. So there will be a member of the select board who will stand up and introduce this article and say a few words about it. And so I think, to Ken's point, it would likely be that select board member if they would like to really, you know, kind of focus the conversation and let people know what exactly they're voting on tonight. And I think it's important to say, you know, if this is voted down, this money is still there, and it is still there under Alumni Field Bleachers design engineering. So it will still be used for that. It does not, you know, if this is voted down, this is, excuse me, one of those articles where this goes back into free cash or something else. It is still there. It is still under bleacher use. It is just a little more restricted than what this article is asking for. Any other comments or questions on this article? All right. So as I said previously, Article 8, the Community Preservation Undesignated Reserve Fund Marble Farm Project, is going to be withdrawn on the floor of town meeting by the Community Preservation Committee.
I would just like to add, Alana, that we have that statement in writing from the committee, so that we have a written commitment that they are going to withdraw the article.
Yes, thank you. So then we have Article 9, adopt MGL Chapter 90, Section 17C, townwide speed limits. So this article is changing the assumed speed limit on town roads where there is not otherwise a speed limit posted from 30 miles an hour to 25 miles an hour. You've probably seen in other towns, I think all the ones around us, have signs at the entrances only, like of the major roads coming into town, a sign that says this, that, you know, unless otherwise posted, townwide speed limit is 25 miles an hour. This was supported by Chief Noble and DPW Director Justin DeMarco as a way to make it easier for the police to enforce this townwide, because when it's not posted, sometimes it can be a little confusing for everyone. So this is their solution, is to go ahead and do what a bunch of other towns have done and just make it posted, stated, and please follow it if this passes. Any comments or questions on Article 9? Okay. So those are our 8 now articles for special town meeting. So special town meeting, everybody, just a reminder, is next Monday, the 24th at 7 p.m. in Fowler Auditorium. So hope that all town meeting voters that can make it come and be with us. So with that, if there's no other questions or comments, at 7:59, I will entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
I make a motion to close the public hearing.
Do I have a second?
Go ahead, Peter.
I'll second.
All right, and I'll do a roll call vote then. Kevin,
Aye.
Ken,
Yes.
Danielle,
Yes.
Peter,
Yes.
Jillian,
Yes.
and I'm a yes as well. Thank you, everybody, for coming to that, and I'll see you next Monday. Before we adjourn our regular meeting to the Finance Committee members, I just want to have a little bit of a discussion about our next agenda items for our next couple of meetings. And let me just open up my calendar so I don't misspeak on dates. But there will be town meeting next Monday. So our meeting after that would be November 14th and November 28th, are our next 2 meetings. So we will be getting into budget season pretty quickly. I think for me, one thing I would like to have on agenda before that would be some more discussion about the projection tool, if possible, Danielle. So I don't know if you want to speak to, if you would feel comfortable putting that on the agenda for the, what did I say, November 14th?
I can do that. I probably won't be able to attend on the 28th, but
Okay.
I can have something for the 14th.
All right, great.
Do we want to form a subcommittee to handle the tool, so that in Danielle's absence, someone could take over and train up on the tool and be able to make progress in her absence?
I think that's something, let's, when we talk about it as an agenda item, let's talk about its use and like how we want to move forward with it. I think that's a good point. So we'll put that on November 14th. Is there anything else pressing on anyone's mind for that particular? Go ahead, Peter.
Just on that issue, Danielle, if it makes sense and if it's possible, it may help for members to be able to look at the spreadsheet again
So
before the meeting.
I think I might be able
something
to send it
wanna
out
send
to Alana to distribute. We were told we couldn't post it anywhere because of open meeting law. So I can't like post it anywhere. I think that people can access
Right.
it, but I
What
can
she
send
means
it to
is,
Alana and distribute it that way.
yeah, we had discussed that we don't want to accidentally get in a situation where it's a live document and 4 of us are on it making changes together. That's what she means by we can't post it. But yes, we can share it.
Yeah, I mean, again, if it's possible to distribute it before the meeting, might be useful for people who want to poke at it a little bit.
Yep, that makes sense.
So I do have an item I wanted to add to the November 14th agenda.
Okay.
I want to just start to get the ball rolling on getting a better understanding of the state of our infrastructure. Talking capital planning, talking to DPW to really understand the state of our infrastructure. What's the expected lifetime? Do we have some infrastructure out there that's near failure that we really should need to know about, and really understanding the financial projections for our infrastructure spending, our infrastructure maintenance.
Okay, I will reach out to the Capcom. I can't promise for the 14th meeting just because they have to be available, but I will reach out to them and put that on there if possible, and also talk to speak to Justin about that.
Yeah, I mean, I would just want like November 14th, I just envision as like the kickoff of like just getting the discussion started. Because
a lot of that discussion will also come up during budgets because specific departments, as they come to us with their budget needs, have capital items and things. So it's definitely a rolling.
So the capital planning committee owes to Greg a capital plan at some point in January. And so we may want to be, to be clear about what we want to do or what we're expecting from them. If we're expecting their prioritization, that's probably not going to come until later in the process. If it's along the lines of what Kevin's asking about, in terms of what is some of the information that they're gathering in order to, make their decisions, in terms of age of infrastructure and things like that, that's something that they may be able to talk about earlier. So again, it would probably be a good idea just to be very clear about what the expectation is. If it is just the, as Kevin is putting it, the beginning of a discussion, then they may be very open to, to sending a rep to the meeting to talk a little bit about where they are. If we sit there and say, hey, what are your priorities going to be for the, the next budget season, that won't be happening at this point.
That's a good distinction. Yeah.
I mean, I'll give you a little bit of preview and I'll just leave it at that. Like what I'm most interested in are the assets that we are either deferring maintenance on or deferring replacement on. I want to get a list of, the state of the assets, how old they are, what's their expected lifetime, and are we seeing any signs of deterioration with them?
Well, so the answer to that is inevitably going to be yes. There are things that maintenance is deferred on because that, that's the story not only of Maynard but of virtually every town, in New England. So I think, I think maybe a reasonable question would be, so do you have, for example, Kevin, an example of something that has happened that concerns you?
Yeah, the bleachers.
Okay.
That's probably a good example.
So I think, the way we may want to put that is the bleachers have been, the bleachers has been an issue for a long time now. And now we're having to take sudden urgent action in order to address that. Capcom, do you see anything else on the list that is at that level of danger where we should be, as a finance committee, taking that into account as we make our budget recommendations? That's going to be probably an easier thing for them to answer rather than, trying to total up the deferred maintenance and, across the town of Maynard.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, this is really what I want to look out for, because as I said before, I think we could do better as a town in terms of our maintenance of our upkeep of our infrastructure, and not being so, and not having to scramble all the time when infrastructure fails. I grant, of course, lots of towns have this issue, but I really want to make a good faith effort to prevent another bleachers from happening again.
So if that's the case, keep in mind that the town staff, the town administrator and his staff can only do what the money that we town meeting voters budget to them. So at that point, this is not about what town, the town staff should be doing or, could be doing. It is about, here are some other issues. And as the finance committee as a whole, we are bringing these to your attention. If you were concerned about alumni bleachers, if you were concerned about the building of the fire station, et cetera, then these are the next, 5 things on the list that we, the finance committee, are going to be looking at, the Capcom is going to be looking at, et cetera.
You explained it you explained myself far better than I did, Ken. That is exactly what I want to do. I think we need to inform town meeting voters as exactly to, what the risks are with our infrastructure, what risks are out there, what could come and really hurt us financially should it fail.
Okay, sounds good. Those are 2 pretty hefty agenda items, so I'm gonna go with that for now. And I think that's and then we will, we'll keep planning ahead the next couple meetings to get us into budget season, and we'll start working on our presentation at some point too. I know February seems far away, but with the holidays mixed in there, it tends to come quick. So.
Hey, Greg, is town meeting being live streamed or just recorded and posted later?
That's a good question. I don't know if it's gonna be live streamed tomorrow, coincidentally, or not coincidentally, this is all well planned out. Is the meeting before, I call it the pre-meeting meeting. And Mark Manation should be there, so I can ask him. I really don't know. It should be at least recorded, but I don't know if it's gonna be live streamed.
I'm assuming, prior to COVID, we would record it and post the recording. But obviously with COVID, we had gotten into the habit of live streaming it. Probably a good thing, personal point right here, probably not a bad thing to not live stream it, so that, if you want to see what goes on at town meeting, then come to town meeting.
That's true too. I don't even know what WAVM's capabilities are for that, so it's a good. I can make a note and ask.
I looked up on HBO what they're playing on Monday night, and it's not very good, so I thought I'd watch town meeting if it was on.
Oh.
All right, I think that's all that I had for this evening. Unless anyone has anything else, I will entertain a motion.
I make a motion, we adjourn.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All right, then I will do a roll call vote. Kevin?
Aye.
Ken?
Yes.
Danielle?
Yes.
Peter?
Yes.
Jillian?
Yes.
And I'm a yes as well. Thank you all, everybody.
Thanks for being here, Greg and Lori.
Yes, I
night,
definitely
thank-
appreciate it. Thank you to our staff for being here and answering our questions. We'll
welcome.
see everyone that can come to town meeting.
Bye, guys.
Good night.
Good night.
Right.